What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about NIO stock as well and break down some very important details about the share price. Also talk about what the news is saying about the markets. That's very important. Before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the soft ends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with NIO. On the daily time frame, a bearish looking daily candlestick on NIO, and we're barely holding above the support at $8. If we lose the support, I'm going to be anticipating more downside for NIO, but that's not a guarantee just yet because of the fact that NIO is still holding support and the market's going to dictate how it ends up moving. Now, I just want to call out that when it comes to our trading calendar, it's very important to pay attention to this. Tomorrow, we have consumer inflationary expectations at 11, very minor data, but more significant data is going to be the bill auctions at 11:30. So watch for some volatility Eastern Standard Time at 11:30 a.m. We have the 3-month and the 6-month bill auctions. And on top of that, we have Bostic from the Fed giving a speech at 12:30. So watch for volatility at those times. There's not much else coming out for Tuesday and Wednesday, but on Thursday, we have CPI data coming out. So make sure you watch that very carefully. Besides that, we have the Fear and Greed Index as well coming out. We'll be watching this as well. Right now, things are like very close to extreme greed, which tells us that there could be a possibility of downside because when the market's too greedy, we could still see downside as months go on as the market becomes more fearful. This is when you have to be a little careful in the markets. This suggests to me that there could be more downside coming as we approach like the next few months. So we're going to be watching this very carefully. As far as NIO goes, we had some news that came out. A video of the ET9 production prototype in high frequency vibrations has come out. And it's basically showing how well it's basically doing in these different environments. And that's some good news for them. I mean, just shows the tests that are being done to improve their products. Very awesome stuff. There's also some news that came out from the Motley Fool. It's coming out and saying that there's big news for new investors. They had strong delivery numbers, and many analysts out there are saying that it has a lot of potential for the upside thanks to that. Actually, listen to what they said. They mentioned that with the strong quarters that are continuing to come out, this company has a very, very strong potential to just crush delivery estimates as time goes on. And we're going to be anticipating some very strong numbers for next year, too. Now, there's some big news that came out. NIO's phone business head is going to likely leave. This is some big news, which is not as great. This has come out as Yin, I can't really say his last name, is going to be leaving, marking basically like the top right over here. And this is going to be very important for them because with him potentially leaving, it's going to have a big effect on NIO's business, and they're going to have to find a replacement very soon. There could be some more negative headlines that come out as a result of this. As a result, it's going to be headed by the hardware chief, by John. That's going to be his name. So we'll watch and see how this goes. With the new guy coming in, I hope that he does very well. And we'll see how this goes as well. The news is coming out right here that if you look at NIO's overall, the hardware head, by John has a lot of experience. Maybe he could actually make big changes as well. I just hope the best for anyone out there. He did make some big announcements about how he's taking over the phone business, and he hinted that NIO phone may be using its own image signal chips. If they end up doing that, that could be bullish news as well, but we'll see about that too. He also mentioned that they want the phone business to be within the scope of smart hardware, and they're going to be watching them basically fight more battles as time goes on. So finally, when it comes to the overall market, Mizuho is still giving NIO a buy rating. They're saying that NIO is still going to do well relative to the markets. The price-price ratio is down, which is still a good sign because, look, although NIO is weak, although it's going to drop more, I think it's another buying opportunity, and I think the long term is going to be strong, and I think NIO is still going to surpass $20 this year. I mentioned this in an earlier video, and I still hold that view. Mondays tend to be weak for NIO, but Tuesdays tend to be stronger, so do Wednesdays, so be careful and be prepared for that. And 41 million was the volume. So with that being said, what do I see for the share prices for all these companies, especially for NIO? Here's my honest answer. I think that when it comes to NIO, we have so much potential, at least for the long term, but for the short term, things could still be very nuanced. So we broke below the 50 EMA. Our supports right now is going to be between 7.92 and also around 8. I think that we might see NIO come down just a little bit more to about 7.92, then try to bounce. We could be forming kind of like a head and shoulders like structure, like a left shoulder here, the head might come down, bounce a little bit, and then we might see a right shoulder develop before it continues lower. So I find that very probable as we're getting a bearish crossover on the PPO. We're actually kind of weak overall. As far as Tesla goes, we're barely holding our 200 EMA at 234. We also have resistance around 240. I think Tesla's going to pop and then drop as we open, push up to about 240 to 242, then just trade sideways. We might close a little green, but very flat on Tesla. I find that very probable so long as there's no bad news. For Apple, I think it's going to be very flat. We have support at 180, also at 178, and we have resistance around 182 and 183 and 183.5. My gut is telling me it's going to trade very sideways. It's not going to do a whole lot. So we'll be watching that very carefully. As far as the QQQ goes, look for a little pop tomorrow. I think it's going to test very close to 400 and then make its way down. If we break and close above 400, look for a nice push up. If it fails to do so, it could still remain weak and make its way lower. So look for a little pop and drop. We'll be watching that as well as time goes on. As far as Nvidia goes, basically, we're going to be looking for a little push up again. I think that there's definitely potential for this to push. Going to be looking for a push up towards 498 to 500 if we break above 495. So look for this little push up that's going to likely form as it reaches this resistance level. And then I think that there's a very good chance that Nvidia will end up kind of rejecting there. So be a little bit careful at that. But I do think it's going to push up a little bit more. And this could help the QQQ and the market pump just a bit before we see a rejection and sideways price action. So that's it for Nvidia, Apple, SPY, the QQQ, and Tesla. What about for NIO? What do I think is going to pan out? On the 4-hour time frame, NIO is still looking kind of weak. I think that although it's on the downtrend, I think that it's going to test 8.18, then reject and come down to 7.92. But once it reaches 7.92, here's the thing about that level that's very significant. When we look at the daily time frame, we have a nice head and shoulders that's forming, right? This is actually a very beautiful looking structure. So I think it's going to pop and drop very tight levels. And then it's going to base at 7.92. So 8.18, it'll touch that, come down to 7.92 after that, come down lower, and then it's going to bounce later on and try to push up to, form this right shoulder before it drops a little bit lower later with the market. So I think overall, it could drop a little bit more, and then we're going to find a base and form a right shoulder very soon. So I find that very probable for NIO. That's what I'm predicting. Although it's looking kind of weak on the daily, could attempt to go up as we had 2 red days in a row. We also have this little gap over here. We have a nice gap which it could fill later on. So look for a little pop and drop. But besides that, NIO is looking a bit weaker because we had all these external pieces of news that hurt it. I just want to note that NIO did nothing wrong. They did give us good deliveries. They've been doing well. I think 2024 will still be a good year for them. But for the short term, the reason why we had this weakness had to do with things that were outside of NIO's control. So that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Enjoy the weekend and look for a little pop and drop on NIO before this thing starts to bounce later on to form a right shoulder. Hope that was as clear as possible. Have a great day, guys, and peace out.